Exit Swarm! Okay, guys.
This is a special one for Paul
This
today.
is the most exciting edition of a Deep Steel Blue Pill that I've ever had.
Yeah, I wonder why.
It tastes like Willy Wonka's everlasting gobstopper.
Because your daddy.
The schnozberries taste like schnozberries.
Because you're God.
Thank you for
you're
saying
one
it.
true king.
Yeah.
Tom Brady had this to say about our quarterback, CJ Stroud.
I mean, CJ is a good example. Like, I really appreciated where he came from and all the expectations that he had, and then what he's gone and put together last year with a lot of humility. And I could see, like, when I watch quarterbacks, the first thing I watch is, does he endear himself to his teammates? What are the things that he's saying? What are the things that he's doing to endear himself to his teammates so that he does feel like one of the guys? If he wants to separate himself from the rest of the team, it's not going to go. You're not going to play 20 years. Just not. Because the only way you're going to play is your teammates. Because there's only so much you could do. There's so many things I sucked at. But the only way that I could get to where I wanted to get to was to have the best teammates. And the only way I could get the best teammates was if I was the best teammate.
Yeah.
How you feeling now?
Hang on.
You feel good?
I'm finishing my prayers.
Yes.
Man, don't you just feel an inner peace when you hear the greatest athlete of all time speaking?
Talking about the great teammate that is CJ Stroud.
Whether at a roast or in that
he doesn't like
comment
those.
On the pivot, right there. I mean, man, just the majesty of his voice and the power of his words and the knowledge that he gave us. And yeah, I will say this about CJ Stroud. He seems about as every man as you're ever going to see a quarterback be. And whether it's that Justin Fields story that we talked about a couple of segments ago about how a lot of his teammates are all of a sudden starting to remark, anonymously, of course, that perhaps he was not as liked as portrayed. And some of the vibes you get from Caleb Williams at USC. Sorry to mention a couple of Bears here, Joe.
Some Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly. It is a forgotten element of being a quarterback, but when your team loves you, it is an advantage. Obviously, you still have to be good, but if you have a guy that is obviously tough, still going to be a leader, but also is just liked by his teammates, who doesn't seem to believe he's above his teammates, that goes a long way. And everything that we saw from CJ Stroud over the past calendar year shows you a guy who was humble, but also a guy who is all of those things that you heard from Tom Brady. Just one of the guys. Will that last forever? Probably not. It's hard to be that guy forever, even eventually for Tom Brady. You know, you're in your 40s. You're the greatest ever to play the game. You've won 6 Super Bowls. You're about to win a 7th. It's going to be hard to relate to everybody in the locker room, but Stroud has that right now, and that is huge for a young team that's trying to figure itself out.
Yeah, I think back to last year when they were feeding us this nonsense about him and Davis. And you have Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil just randomly posting on Instagram about CJ being QB1. It doesn't mean everything, but at the same time, it's like a quick indication, like, okay, they believe. They believe right away. The way they talked about him in training camp, you could just tell like it was different. And it was a hint of what was to come in the regular season, the way that they discussed CJ Stroud and his prep and his work ethic and the way he played in practice. Like, they could tell right away.
I don't remember the early things said about Deshaun Watson as well as I'd like to for this segment specifically right now, but I don't remember the vibes being quite this, and that's nothing against that version of Deshaun Watson at the time. Like, this feels like it's on another level. And look, there's lots of teammate hype that you hear every single offseason. I'm just saying that for a change, and perhaps I'm too close to home, this is one that I'm willing to buy into hook, line, and sinker.
Agreed.
This idea that he is the kind of human being that you look at and you're like, yep, that's my leader. I believe that we are always in a game. And I also believe that this guy has my back. So I'm going to make sure I have his back whenever he needs it.
Big time. Big time.
because it's like because I think Watson was positive, especially like
True.
Even the teammate stuff, it was positive at the time. But if like on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like a 7 or an 8. Where this is like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
This is like breaking the scale. Everyone loves CJ Stroud, who just views him from afar even.
Right.
So there is some next level stuff here.
There are mitigating factors too, because Watson got hurt after I think 7 games his rookie year,
and he
that also makes it a little bit difficult.
Savage was named the starting quarterback in spring training
going into the year,
in preseason. So like, it's also kind of weird where like you're gassy, like you want to gas up Deshaun Watson, talk about how great he is, but your coach and everyone there knows that Savage is going to start for 30 minutes and then be benched. So like I think that's also why it's a little different. But no, I do think you're right. Like the Watson stuff, it doesn't feel the same, and it's revisionist history a little bit with the way they're talking about CJ now. But even the way other people talk about CJ. You know, whether like the Colts players we heard from last week, the way that Micah talks about him when they're on their podcast, the way you hear other current NFL players talk about CJ Stroud, and it's not just Tom Brady, it's Peyton Manning, it's Pat McAfee, it's JJ Watt, like all these like all-time greats, not to put Pat in that category, but like all these great players all talk about CJ in a way that they don't talk about Justin Herbert, that they don't talk about really anyone besides Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes.
It really seems like there are no skeptics that are his peers. And I mean, as you were listing all those guys that are on other teams, I've yet to hear somebody say like, CJ Stroud's not all that. Now, obviously you're going to get that from people in Jacksonville and Nashville and in Indianapolis. And I'm sure some Chiefs fans probably going to say the same thing, or Ravens fans, especially after the way that those 2 games went last year. But I think that like, if you were to poll most NFL players and ask the question, is CJ Stroud already a top 10 quarterback? I think pretty much like 80 to 90% would say yes.
And maybe some of this is just because it's his rookie year, so it's early. But there's no, even with Josh Allen, who's consensus number 2, maybe number 3 quarterback in the league for most people, it's turns the ball over a little too much. Like with Lamar, we all know the Lamar doing the playoffs kind of stuff. Herbert, it's also kind of doing the playoffs and actually win something. Like there's a knock. Dak Prescott, there's knocks. Like there's knocks on all these quarterbacks where there's just like no knock on CJ Stroud if you're going to be a detractor, you know?
Mm-hmm.
With time, those knocks could come.
Sure.
Probably will come.
Yeah.
But after 1 year of watching him play and without the statistical production of Patrick Mahomes' first full season as a starter, there is a very big consensus that seem to believe that Stroud is that guy as a dude and that guy as a player. He's young. Plenty of things can change, but I am all bought in on this guy. That's for sure.
All right. My hot take for this segment. When the NFL players finish voting and the NFL Network puts out their top 100 this year, CJ Stroud will be in the top 10. CJ Stroud will be
top 10 overall.
Top 10 overall.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Last year, your top 10 was Mahomes, Jefferson, Jalen Hurts, Nick Bosa, Travis Kelce, Joe Burrow, Tyreek Hill, Josh Allen, Micah Parsons, Chris Jones. Those were the top 10 players in the NFL, according to the players when they revealed this.
So the Jalen Hurts spot's going to open up.
Yep, I would think so.
And maybe like the Joe Burrow spot because he was hurt.
Yeah,
So-
they just forget about him. It's not like, not forget it, but he's just not at like the top of your mind.
Yeah, I think the NFL players will put CJ Stroud in the top 10 after 1 year.